Okay, ready? The January 30th, 2025 Des Moines City Council study session is now called to order. Councilmember Nutting will now lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand if you're able.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
To all of the public joining us tonight, welcome. Thank you for joining us, both online and in person. For those watching online or on Channel 21, please know that we can't attend to our phones here from the dais, but if you experience any problems, technical problems, please email cityclerk@desmoineswa.gov. That's cityclerk@desmoineswa.gov. Right now, the council will dismiss to executive session in accordance with RCW 42.30.1101B to discuss the potential acquisition of real estate. The session is expected to last for 15 minutes and dismiss at 6:19. All right.
Tim, are we permitted to bring this stuff into the executive session, or do we need to leave it here?
Much. I believe we have a motion.
I move to direct city manager to explore grant opportunities, including King County Conservation Futures and suitable parcels within the city that could be acquired to support stormwater permit requirements or to preserve or expand the city's tree capacity.
Second, Deputy Mayor Steinmetz, any comments? All right, all in favor, raise your right hand. Looks like it's unanimous. Thank you. I would also now like to pass the baton over to the city manager for a few moments.
Before we get into this next item, because I think to a member of the public, it can look sort of confusing how did council come out and just talk about a conservation futures grant. So I'm going to ask our city attorney to sort of explain how the item in executive session is about a different piece of property and why that was an exec as opposed to what we're going to talk about publicly.
Yeah, thank you. What we're talking about publicly, this property, this WSDOT property, we can't talk about in executive session because executive session only allows us to talk about properties where if we would like to acquire them, the public knowledge of that might actually increase the price. And since we have the option to purchase this, the price will not go up if we talk about this property publicly. So that's the distinction. We're talking about a different property in executive session.
So in other words, we just talked about applying for a grant to secure a different piece of property for open space. And then when we talk about the WSDOT property, we're talking about that one. Does that make sense?
Right. The meeting tonight has been reorganized to facilitate better conversation, better understanding of the discussion at the dais tonight. So don't be confused. It's on purpose. So do we have any correspondence not previously received by council?
No, Mayor.
All right, thank you. So we're going to move into our discussion items. We're going to begin with the sale of the WSDOT property. The purpose of this agenda item is to consider an offering of a piece of property for city purchase, and we're going to have a staff presentation first. Comments from the public after the presentation. Go ahead.
Great. Tara, how do I? Okay, thanks. So a little bit of background on what this item is. I received a letter December 17th from WSDOT with the opportunity to purchase this piece of what they consider surplus property. It is off of 216th. The letter does reference prior conversations between WSDOT and staff, but saying, hey, we're going to have some surplus property that we're going to be offering you. But none of those conversations included the purchase price. So the first time we heard the purchase price was in the letter I got right before Christmas. And this is surplus property that had been previously identified for 509, and then, as you know, the route changed, it was left over. The purchase price is $5.35 million, and that is based on an appraisal that WSDOT recently had done. So the process for surplus property for WSDOT is that they approach the city the property's in as a courtesy. So we're their first stop that they make the offer to. If we turn it down, then they approach abutting property owners, and they will offer them the same price, because the appraised price is their floor. So unlike other transactions where maybe you can negotiate as a governmental entity because they have an appraisal for that, it is unlikely it would go below $5.35 million. So let's say they go to the abutting property owners, and if none of them are interested in purchasing the property, then it goes for a public auction process. So that's sort of the steps. Next slide. A little bit about the property. It is a little over 6 acres. It is separate from Barnes Creek Trail. So you can see in the green on that map that the kind of current area, but also the future sort of developed trail there is not part of this property. I saw some concerns on social media that the trail was going away, and that is not correct. As you can tell, the parcel is separate from that. In late 2023, the City Council zoned this property multifamily, I was not here in late 2023, but when I pulled those documents, the agenda memos and write-ups talked about how the city determined that was the best use for this property for multiple reasons, but really the one I want to point out was that it helps the city meet the state-required housing growth targets. So per the Growth Management Act, the city has to have, X number of additional housing units into the future, and so this multifamily property helped count towards that value. Okay, so I was asked to explore a couple of different scenarios for this property. The first one is that the city would purchase the property at the $5.35 million and perhaps use it for your own purposes, meaning the city's purpose, or sell it to a developer down the road. This is not really a feasible option for us. It exceeds our existing fund balance. As you can see, our fund balance, which is basically the city's savings account, is $4.6 million, of which only $2 million is liquid. And I would really, really, really never recommend we drain that. So really, we don't even have that much cash on hand. If the council wanted to purchase it, we would need to cancel or delay other significant capital projects to come up with those funds. If bond dollars were used, we would need to amend ordinance, and as you know, that would then trigger, those projects would not be able to happen, because this would be a significant amount of funding. Now, if the city bought it and then chose to sell it, we would have to go through the property surplus process. So we would not be able to just necessarily turn around and sell it to somebody designated. We'd have to get an appraisal, sell it for fair market value, go through a process pretty similar to WSDOT. The next scenario I was asked to explore is the city applies for a grant to keep it open space. And the city can apply for a King County Conservation Futures grant to purchase it. The land would remain open space indefinitely. The grant application is due February 10th. The grant match required is 25%. That's $1.33 million. I would say that grant match alone is funding I do not have available. We'll talk about the recent budget in a moment, but needless to say, I don't have that money sitting aside. We would have to use either fund balance or use bond funds for the match, which, like I said, then affects other projects that money is already earmarked for. SWIM dollars, which are surface water management funds, are not eligible for this match. We did review this property with surface water management staff, and this property is not eligible for that because it did not have the dense enough tree canopy to provide the environmental benefit that they look at on other properties. Now, there is a process to request a grant match waiver, which we would apply for if the council wanted to go this direction, but we do not meet all the criteria. So we've already talked to King County staff, and one of the criteria is, you have to be having open space in an area that's considered underserved. And so this parcel is very close to Stephen J. Underwood Park, so it doesn't meet all the criteria for the grant match waiver, but we could still apply and ask. And we would need to demonstrate how this property will serve underserved and disadvantaged populations. Now, in this scenario, maintenance of the property is 100% the responsibility of the city. And this would be a new cost that I would need to integrate into the budget. As you all know, we just went through a tough budget cycle. I don't have any extra, so I would have to do some type of trade-off with something we've already committed to funding. The benefit, though, is that this does indeed add to our open space acreage. The cost, or kind of the con to this approach, is that there's no tax revenue generation from this property ever, and that we are introducing new costs to an already very tight financial situation. The third scenario, which is the one that staff recommended, is that the city passes on the property purchase. And let me start by saying, I sincerely wish we were in a financial situation where this became available and I said, oh, we have that money sitting aside. Or when I even saw a grant match, I said, we can swing that. The city is not in that financial position right now to make this purchase without impacting other projects or priorities. Additionally, the council less than 18 months ago did zone this property, designating it appropriate for development. And as you all know, the development of this property would bring in additional property tax revenue, REIT, sales tax, development fees. And I think what I would also say is, it's been made clear to me from this council that the priority has been finding structural revenue, has been not introducing new costs. It has been to grow the tax base. I've heard comments about how this community has, almost more tax exempt land than many other communities in King County. And so to take this property off of the tax rolls and the potential to generate revenue goes against that direction I've received. That being said, I understand priorities can change, and I work at the pleasure of the council. So if the council wants to do something different, we will put 100% effort behind it. But from a fiscal lens, I would absolutely recommend we don't take on more than we can handle with this property. So I put up a few things to think about, but really at this point, we're open to the council's discussion. We can answer any questions or get your direction.
Okay, so what we're going to do now is take questions from the council before public comment, so you can get as much information as possible before making comments. So I'll go with Deputy Mayor Steinmetz first, and then Councilmember Nutting.
Yeah, what's the staff capacity to get this grant done by February 10th? That seems like a very, very short amount of time with a lot of other things going on.
It would be tight. So, we did just, to be fair, we did just leave an executive session where you authorized us to go pursue this same grant for a different property by February 10th. And we will be doing that. If council tonight chose to pursue this grant, we would have to outsource that. We do have a grant writer we've used in the past, and that would be like my first call tomorrow morning. But it would be tight. It would be very tight.
Councilmember Nutting.
Are we having discussion or just questions right now?
This is just questions right now.
Okay,
Yeah.
no questions.
Right. Councilmember Harris.
So, let's see here. Is this an all or nothing decision? And is there a decision point tonight?
Yeah, great question. So the original letter that's in the packet had like a due date for an answer of January 31st, and I apologize for bringing an item a day before that. But I have already spoken to WSDOT staff. They've given us an extension to February 17th to let them know if we're interested or not. If we are interested in purchasing, they said they would consider an extension beyond that, but it really depends on kind of like how quickly we'd come up with the funding. I would say if the council wants us to pursue the grant, I do need to know tonight. Like finding out the evening of February 6th is too short. So that would be the one thing that I think is time sensitive to tonight.
Is it possible to subdivide that parcel or provide any expansion of the easement to the west of Barnes Creek Trail?
That is not a conversation we've had with WSDOT. I would have to talk to them tomorrow about that. My conversations with them thus far are, they are like ready to dispose of this property. So I think their focus will be selling it as kind of as expediently as they can. So whether or not they'd be interested in subdividing and then sort of starting a new process on another parcel, I don't know, but I can ask them that tomorrow if you would like.
I get it. It's just that as long as I've lived here and going back to Mayor Dave, the will was to develop a continuous trail surface. Beyond the entire parcel. Well, it is, and so.
No, it's not. That's true.
Subdividing it into.
No comments right now,
I'm
please.
asking what those possibilities are. Then my next question is, are you aware of the likelihood of development within a 3 to 5 year horizon? My understanding is that specifically
Just the
multifamily.
question, please, Councilmember, just the question.
I am not
Forgive me.
aware of any multifamily buyers that are like standing there at the curb waiting. That being said, it wasn't for sale until, it's not even really officially for sale yet. So it's pretty new. But no, I don't know of anybody like waiting in the wings this moment.
What, if any, are our costs if it goes on the open market? Do we have any, as a city, maintenance costs while it is in stasis, while the property is awaiting some kind of development?
I don't believe so, because it's WSDOT's property right now to maintain.
Okay, so the decision point, so you could ask them to hold off until the 17th, is it? To defer a decision until the 17th, but you need to have an answer as to whether or not to make that request tonight.
And I need an answer on whether or not you want staff to begin preparing a grant application tonight, because that's due February 10th.
Well, at a minimum, I would make a motion now to direct the city to ask to defer that decision until the 17th so that we can research this a bit further.
First of all, do we have a second? Okay, so there's no second. Councilmember Oxker.
Thank you. I'll just say that I think it's premature to ask the question because we have some other comments we have to go through first. So I'm not seconding because of anything other than timing. Okay, but my question is, you indicated that we would have to go outside to get some grant writing assistance and all that. Do you have any idea what we're talking about? If we go for a delay in order to go explore other opportunities, what do you project the cost as being?
I don't know what the cost would be to hire a grant writer to prepare this application that's due February 10th. I don't think it's so large that if the council wants to go that direction, I feel reasonably assured we can find the funding for that application. But I do, because I feel like it's maybe a little unclear, WSDOT wants to hear from us by February 17th. Do you want to buy it or not? But the council sort of needs to tell me tonight if you want to pursue a grant, because that's due February 10th.
Right, no,
Okay.
I'm just asking, do we have any idea
What the cost of that would be?
cost of our taking that option at this point?
I don't. I could look into what maybe it's cost us to, when we've hired that grant writer before. I could look at that. I think it's not I'm going to guess it's less than 10,000, but I don't know that number off the top of my head. I'd have to dig it up.
Okay, but you've given us a range, so, yeah, okay, that was my question, thank you.
Councilmember Mahoney.
And if we pass on this property, REIT, sales tax, all of the other things, do we have an estimate of what kind of revenue that would bring to our various funds in the city?
Yeah, I wanted to try to calculate that, but I don't know what would be developed there other than some multifamily property. So I don't have that number, but I mean, I think the fees and REIT alone would be significant because, I mean, it would be a pretty dense use.
But the initial use of the sale,
The sale, yes, I mean.
the land, I understand if development occurred. I didn't know if we had a kind of an estimated revenue.
I don't have a number, but you're right, we would get money from the sale. Then when the developer came in, we'd get money from the sales tax of that materials. We'd get money from the new construction that would add to the tax base. We would get funding from development fees coming in. I think those are the high ones.
And my question, stemming off of Councilmember Harris's question, if we were to see if it could be partitioned out, in your opinions, whether it's Mike or you that answers this question, what's the likelihood of attracting developers on a smaller lot versus the larger lot?
Anything is possible, but because the Barnes Creek Trail is already pulled out of this parcel, I don't really know how interested WSDOT would be in making developable property smaller. If I were them, I would not be. But, you know, I can definitely ask the question if that's the direction the council wants to go.
And I assume, I'm almost answer the question for you, that developers would find it less attractive on a smaller lot.
It's definitely more challenging on a smaller lot, especially a multifamily project.
Thank you.
Councilmember Nutting.
I guess to further on Councilmember Mahoney's questions, would we spend more money trying to subdivide that property than we would make off of the purchase and sale of that property? If we didn't let it go to a developer from the port, or from WSDOT selling that property to the port?
I mean, I don't know if we would, I mean, if the idea is we subdivide the property and then we try to purchase whatever the part is that we've subdivided, like the part that we,
Can I clarify
Yeah.
that we would not be subdivided?
Yeah, it'd be
We
washed
would
out.
only, yeah, keep going.
I mean, taking on any amount of this property is a cost, right? Because you are responsible for maintaining it, securing it. I don't have those funds set aside right now. So any amount of the property would be a new cost to me.
Thank you.
Okay, so these are all questions, right? So I'm gonna go just down the line. You all kind of went like this, same time. So Deputy Mayor Steinmetz, then Councilmember Oxiger, then Councilmember Mahoney, then Councilmember Harris. Go ahead.
Yeah, I know we rezoned this in October of '23. How many times has been, and I know that was in response to putting a moratorium at one point on a larger
Question?
area. How many times has this been in front of the council since that moratorium on the larger property? Do we know?
I'm gonna ask Tim to.
Well, I think we've had probably at least 3 hearings about this area, and probably at the committee level too. And that was 2022 and 2023 when we had the moratorium on this property. Yeah.
Councilmember Oxiger.
Could you put the map back up, please? It's in green, it's not the hashed thing, but what is that parcel to the west of the property there? What is it now? The triangle there?
Yeah.
It's private. It's privately owned
Yeah, it's
property.
privately owned, but I don't know who owns it or what it is.
Okay.
That would be, I guess, one of the abutting property owners WSDOT would talk to next if we passed.
Okay, thank you. Well, actually, one other question. Do we know why it's such an odd shape down in the southern end?
I definitely don't know that, unfortunately. Oh, Tim does. Tim knows.
Yeah, well, so we all know, right, and maybe the public doesn't know, but this is where the freeway was originally supposed to go, so they bought this all out. So the green, the city actually owns that in fee simple. So that's where the Barnes Creek Trail is, not the shaded, like the full green part, the green line, right?
Right.
That's the Barnes Creek Trail. The city owns that. That's, in the future, that would be fully developed like other pieces of the trail. And then the city also owns just to the south, it's the south of that property where it kind of curves. So the city owns the right-of-way right there. So you see the road that comes out to the east? So the city owns a right-of-way that then kind of curves down and connects to that green, the green trail. Does
There
that make
is,
sense?
yeah, we got an addendum that has a map that shows that. When you
Okay.
sent that addendum,
Yeah.
there's a map.
So we own the streets in there, is why it kind of looks weird. And then there's parcels in between that don't connect, that essentially the city was at some point supposed to build roads in there. And so WSDOT dedicated to us those right-of-ways that are in there. And that's why it kind of made the whole thing look a little strange.
So then from the south end of the property that we're talking about down here, the bottom of the thick green line and stuff like that, any area to the west of it, we also own that at this point, or we don't own it?
To the south of the WSDOT property,
Yes.
so we own a right-of-way right there. So if you were to, it's probably 90 feet or so, 60 feet. And then there's a parcel that's the rest of that to the south. And I believe we're working on an agreement with WSDOT where they're gonna convey that to us as part of mitigation for some work that they're doing. So eventually, basically, everything south of that WSDOT property that's under consideration tonight will be city-owned.
Okay, thank you.
I think a council member got answered. All right, and Councilmember Harris.
Thank you. So what I've been driving at is actually that southern little thing would be to try to make that swath of about 100 feet at the south end simply continue forward to the top of the parcel so that there is about 100 feet in scope between the Barnes Creek Trail and then the development. And that is what I would, so my question is, let's see here. Is there a tree replacement inventory? This is probably a fool's errand, but it's one of those catch-22s because the parcel is weak right now, tree-wise. Is there some sense of what trees would be replaced if you put an apartment complex in there? That's kind of a concern for me because
Yeah, the mayor had also asked me a similar question of that this week. It's almost impossible for me to answer. A, I haven't done a tree survey on that property, and secondly, we don't know what the layout of the apartment complex would be, so it's challenging.
I just had to ask. Okay, and are you familiar, you know, I had asked about the Forterra thing with Soundview Park, and by the way, you've done an exemplary job on short notice. I want the public to understand, just you pulled together a tremendous.
Question right now, please.
Yeah, but I had to throw that in. And so are you familiar with did you have a chance to consider the Forterra financing that we used at Soundview? It was like a multi-step thing.
That's the Culture, Arts, and Environment grant?
They financed Van Gasken, then we repaid it with an RCO grant.
Okay.
I'm oversimplifying it, but it was a two-step kind of a thing.
Okay. I would need to look into that further, and I can if that's the direction of the council.
Okay, fair enough. That's it.
Any more questions before we go ahead? Thank you, Councilmember Mahoney.
Just real for clarification, what was the width of the easement for the Barnes Creek Trail in feet? Do we have that by any chance? Is it 15 feet, 20 feet, 12 feet, 10?
Councilmember, I believe it's at least 90. It might be a little bit bigger. We'd have to check on that. It was originally planned for a full road section plus bike lane, sidewalk, and the trail, right? So it's got to be at least 90. It might be more, but I could double check on that.
No, that's good to know. Thank you.
Very helpful. Okay, any other questions? Well, I'm double checking this unique schedule here. Any more questions before we receive comments from the public?
I have some information here that if I see if I can put it in the form of a question, we're playing Jeopardy here.
Is this true?
Yeah, is it not true that the property to the west that nobody seemed to know where is, that it's owned by an MI Partners LLC, and is currently appraised at $725,900.
Okay, yes, that is true, because I did speak to that property owner. I'm sorry, I did not off the top of my head remember that. But yes, I spoke to him.
Just for information.
Okay. Good questions. Any more questions before we move to public comment? All right, I'm opening it up to public comment. We do have a couple people who have stepped up to testify tonight. So the first one up is Barbara McMichael.
Yes, good evening, City Council. I sent along a pretty vociferous letter to all of you earlier this week, and I don't need to rehash it terribly. I appreciate that you're giving some consideration to how to keep our green space, and this is an argument that citizens have been making, not just before this iteration of the council, but other iterations of the council and a different city manager. And in that comp plan survey, that even ahead of public safety, which is important to all of us, people were talking about preservation of green space. And I think that it's a hard argument to make in this time, but it is also an essential argument to make. It's not the 20th century anymore, it's the 21st century. We see it happening in California, we see it happening, we see disasters happening everywhere. So to be able to really consider our role in preserving environment for wild animals, for, keystone species, and for our families, our kids, and so on. I just think it's really important to keep that in mind. I want to be a solutions helper, so I did offer some other things, conservation futures. The Muckleshoot tribe is really interested now in placekeeping. They have worked closely with the city of Kent, for example, along the Duwamish River. And I've spoken with the tribal historian who is really interested in placekeeping, and they have money. So I think that's something, they've been here since time immemorial. I think we should be in conversations with them. I'm, in full disclosure, I'm doing a little bit of contract work right now with Explore Seattle Southside, and it's not like they would fund something like this, but they are very good at helping publicize and promote something that is attractive and authentic to the area, that would bring people here to enjoy our city of Des Moines on many scales. So I really would love for you, city manager, to be in close conversation with the CEO and talk with Mark about that. And I also think that the Port of Seattle does owe us big time. They have caused an awful lot of impact, and I think they might even be eager to talk about what they could do to provide further mitigation. So those are all thoughts of mine. I hope that you will follow up on them. Sorry for the short time frame. I know it's impossible, but we really are depending on you to make good decisions for us. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Next up, I have Ann Craker.
Hi there. Obviously, Ann Craker. I just wanted to also say that there were some other, I sent in some comments, but now thank you, but I didn't have all this information. So now I have a sort of off the cuff, a whole nother level of questions or remarks, which obviously I'm not going to be able to get into too much because I'm not an expert there. But also to mention that there were some other groups that I am a co-lead of our Climate Action Group, which is based in the Saltwater Unitarian Universalist Church in Des Moines, and both Nancy Kaur and Betsy Sproger, who's not here, and Alyssa Johnson at very least also, are very concerned for their group and because they live here. A couple of things about the parcel zoning. I don't ever see why it would be appropriate to take green space, even if it hasn't been maintained properly, which I don't think WSDOT has done. So taking it over by the city means you can do the same thing, which is nothing for a while. Is to take actual green space and turn it into hard-sided development. It just seems like exactly the wrong choice, that there got to be other ways, other places that have already been developed that are much more appropriate for redevelopment than our last little remaining green space, because that seems to be last. All of the arguments seem to go forward. They make sense that you're saying of how you want to do things. But if you look at it from the top level, we don't have enough green space. End of story. We do not have enough trees. We do not have enough green space. And it is at the last minute that we're saying, well, now that's too bad. You came at the end. So I think we need to step back, look over and see there are barriers to getting this done. But let's get it done. And there are so many volunteers in the city who would help with taking care of it and making that into a space that was, even though they had lost the other parts with Barnes Creek Trail, they would have one side that was clean, that was quiet, except for hopefully birds and maybe a few other animal sounds and that sort of joy. But the spiritual needs that our community continues to need, are all based on the green space, green space that we are giving up. And that's basically probably what it comes, yeah. And I guess if you do pass, it would also, on purchasing the property, it also means you have no control over who gets it next and what they make of it. And that could be much worse than what you're thinking of. Anyway, there's got to be a way forward, and please do include the city people, the residents, because I think they could help. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. I would like to turn it over to the city manager for just a moment.
Thank you for your comments. I did want to just clarify one thing. You asked, would the city have any control over what happens to it? So like any other private property in any city, anywhere, really the city's ability is to control the zoning that's on a parcel of property, the building standards that are on a parcel of property. So, I mean, can I dictate exactly, the color of the door of the apartment? No. But the city does have the ability to really control the use and those building standards. So there is, and that's true of any piece of private property in the city.
All right, thank you. One more offer for any more questions before the motion. Do you have a question?
I have no questions, I have comments, but I can make the motion.
After the motion, so that doesn't look like I have any questions. Go ahead and make the motion, Councilmember.
I'm sorry, give me a second here.
Oh, there isn't one. I have one, so I'll grab it. I'm sorry, I should have forwarded it.
A second then.
I move to decline the offer made by the Washington State Department of Transportation for the purchase of a parcel of land adjacent to South 216th Street and the Barnes Creek Trail for the price of $5,350,000. Do I have a second? Councilmember Nutting, up for the second. Discussion. Councilmember Nutting.
I really appreciate this coming forward. I made the motion on the property prior because I do believe in green spaces. We rezoned this property to multifamily. I've always, since I've sat up here on the 10-year, been in development, and this is some structural revenue that we can depend on. We just went through a budget cycle where we froze 2 police officers and got rid of our crisis management person. It's challenging for me to spend $5.3 million on a piece of property for green space when we could have structural revenue, when we just froze 2 officers and a crisis management in an already depleted police force. So you're saying we don't have enough green space. I'm saying we don't have enough officers. So it's a challenge. It's always going to be the rub, right? And I cannot support passing this. So that's where I'm at.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Harris.
I move to defer this decision to February the 6th, and I further move to direct the city to investigate the possibility of subdividing the property to provide an equivalent easement with the southern extent of the property.
So
Is that a clear?
A subsidiary motion to this. It's not an amendment. It's a different motion. Oh, that's my interpretation. Can you help me out here, Tim?
Yeah, well, I think it was a little bit confusing there towards the end, but he's essentially moving to continue this conversation to another meeting. So I think we can address that now. If the council, if there's a second and the council votes in favor of moving this to a different meeting, that's okay.
And then the other one the other motion disappears, or it's tabled?
Yeah, essentially it would be tabled.
Okay. So it looks like you made a couple of motions there. So can we just take the first one, the deferral, and not the second section? Or do you want to take the entire thing?
I kind of object because the only reason to defer the item to the 6th is to give the city the time and the direction to perform the necessary research. In other words, the decision point on the 6th is a slightly different decision.
Yeah, so we have a
All right.
very complex motion that's been made.
All
Well,
right, so,
you know,
okay.
it's a
I
complex.
feel like I
issue.
understand. Do I have a second?
So this is for the city manager. You're saying you need, if we're to go through with this, a delay until the 6th would be problematic, that you need the time for a grant thing, that you need a decision tonight.
Well, I think what I'm here, first, Mike looked up the width of the trail easement, and it is 130 feet, just FYI, is what is in that green line. So if Councilmember Harris asking me to look into subdividing, I could look into that, but that would mean the city is paying for the land, whatever the subdivide may be, because I would not have the time to prepare a grant application for a part of a property when the grant application is due February 10th. So I think what I would say, and I know this is getting very muddled, is if the request is go talk to WSDOT about subdivision and report back on February 6th, okay, if you like what I come back with, the city would be buying that property. If you say, go prepare this grant application, I would prepare it for the whole parcel because that's sort of like the piece of property on the table, and I would need to know that tonight.
Okay. And you don't want
Okay.
comments at this point?
No comments. We're in the middle of a motion. That was clarity on the motion. So there was no second. So that motion dies. Now, do I have any more? We have this motion on the table. We're in the middle of the discussion of the motion that had a second, which was decline the offer, blah, blah, blah. So, Councilmember Grace Matsui.
Thank you. While I do wish that we had a magical bank account that we could come up with $5.3 million in this short period of time, it does not seem like the magic bank account exists. I do feel that asking for enough time to turn in a possible grant application to Conservation Futures would show WSDOT that we're interested in acquisition, which would be a serious attempt to come to some sort of terms with them, may give us that extension we need to find more information out about what we could do with that property, about subdivision, whether we could, what the highest, best use could be if we were only gonna get a part of it. But if we were to say no right now, that window is closed. And so I would urge folks to consider not saying no yet, but to direct the city manager to go after the grant application, knowing it's not a sure thing. We may not get the application in time, we may not get it approved, but at least would extend that opportunity to continue the conversation with WSDOT.
Deputy Mayor Steinmetz.
I am just not inclined to kick this can any further down the road at this point. I understand that a lot of people want to, they see an open space and they want to try to preserve it. And I am very sympathetic to that. I think we do need to preserve our green space, but we also need housing. And we have made a decision over the last couple of years as a council, since 2022, about this exact area up there and how we think it should be developed. And that has been a long-term planning process that there have been multiple opportunities for everybody to weigh in on, talk about what they think it should be. There have been committee meetings on it. There have been 3 times before the council up here at the dais. This is exactly the long-term planning process that people keep saying that they want. That's what's happened, and this is now zoned for multifamily because we need more housing. We need it on a lot of levels, but particularly that multifamily is the more affordable housing in the city. We need it because we need to meet the Comprehensive Growth Management Act in our plan. And we need, the other message that has come through loud and clear is that we need to be responsible stewards of the city's money. And we can't just change our minds and say, okay, let's take this piece of property that we have gone through the planning process on, change the zoning on it in order that it's going to produce some revenue for the city on an ongoing basis, and now say, no, let's keep it empty space. And by the way, the city takes on the obligation of maintaining that empty space. You know, the fires in LA that have happened, all of them, or at least the two big ones, the Palisades fire and the Eaton fire, started on undeveloped land. That's where forest fires start. I don't know that this necessarily makes it a situation that's comparable here, but the point is you've got to maintain the land and you've got to be prepared for it. The decision was made that we wanted to stop at this city, the development that seemed to be coming across 216th, and keep this a more residential focused area. And that's why that is zoned multifamily in there. That's why we ended up putting a moratorium on this land. And this has been exactly the process that everybody's been asking for. I really don't need to find out anything more about this. We've made our decision already when we rezoned it. And on top of that, we just don't have the money. I mean, we can't put yet another change in our budget after this short of amount of time. I think, you know, we're asking, you know, our city manager and our finance director to be, you know, pretzels and supermen and come up with amazing changes right on the fly. Let's try to stick to the plan that we have now. So I really don't need to hear anything more. I think this is what's important, is that we have gone through the process. We have made our decisions. If this is going to be developed into multifamily, we do have a tree code. So if there are trees taken down, we can do the inventory, and those trees will be replaced on that property. We have control over the zoning. We have control over how the buildings get built. I think let's stick with the plan. Thank you.
Councilmember Oxiger.
Well, I have to disagree from this aspect. Part of the question that has been raised here is whether or not to explore whether or not there is additional money available that would not impact the city budget. To me, this is a question of, we have priorities here. One is that, yes, we do have to raise revenue, but then it's running into a conflict with our priorities for preserving canopy, or preserving, you know, open space against, you know, development. It's been stated that it would cost, rough estimate of maybe $10,000 to do this. This is a critical enough question, I think, that give the city manager the opportunity to go out and dot all the I's, cross all the T's. We know exactly what we can and cannot do, and we can come back and we can support the decision then. It's when you don't have all the facts that the second guessing comes in and causes a great deal of problems. So my position is that approve tonight the authorization for the city managers to, you know, explore whether or not there are funding opportunities here, and exhaust all, you know, avenue as far as finding questions for this. So
Point,
I will be voting.
would the council member like to make a motion?
How about I leave it to you?
Well, can I make a clarifying question on that?
Yes.
The grant match is 25%, which is 1.337 million. I do not have that money. So I think what I would need some direction on is, are you only interested in pursuing the grant if we get the waiver, which keep in mind, we don't meet all the criteria for, or are you, but we could try, or are you interested in pursuing the grant knowing accepting we may get a 25% match we have to identify funding for. Does that make sense?
Again, that's a question as we go down the line, exactly where, what is our situation at that point?
So you have to apply, the application has to be like, I'm applying and I'm good with the 3-to-1 match, or you apply through a process where you are asking for the match waiver and the application. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think you explore the opportunity of going for
The waiver.
the waiver. If we don't get the waiver, it's a whole other question. But what I'm saying is that we have two conflicting priorities here. I think we need to exhaust all opportunities to come to the best decision possible, given what the questions are. It's one of the, Councilmember Harris, one of the reasons why I was hesitant on your motion before was the kicking this down, delaying this until February 6th. The council, the city manager is indicating she needs a decision now. I think your arguments are just as relevant. It's just that, I'm trying to avoid going to delaying until the 6th. That's my, thank you.
Okay, was Councilmember Mahoney first, and then it was Councilmember Harris.
First of all, to Councilmember Oxford's comment, the zoning was the intent and the priority, I think, was established. Deputy Mayor said it too. I went and walked the property. I looked at it right now. It's basically invasive species for the most part. It's sticker bushes and ivy killing what few trees are on the property. But I looked at it from a development standpoint. And if you look, can you show the map back up, please? If you look to the west of it, it's about the same acreage and size as the two apartment complexes down below. So perfect in that capacity for it. And an advantage it has some views of the water and the sunset and looking west in particular. So it's attractive and gives a livable feel. I asked about the buffer because you're talking about already a 130-foot wide trailed access. And from what I understand, any developer would have to do mitigation along the trail for look and feel and stuff like that to ensure we have the look and feel we want. It also would guarantee us a much safer entry into that portion of the trail. The Barnes Creek Trail is going to be a fundamental connection going through the other development down to the Des Moines Creek Trail and all the way to the college. And that gives that safe, family-friendly access. There's several people around that area and community that would definitely use that. We need the revenue. Fact is, all talked, well, I want to find structural revenue. And I understand you have your priorities there, but the truth is we need to find structural revenue if we want to remain the city we are today. It's just what it is. We recognize it. Inflation and everything else and so forth, we obviously we can't push our residents for some kind of levy or something else that's going to raise money. It's just not going to happen. So postponing it any further is not an option. Yeah, I didn't have it on there. Sorry, when you get passionate about something. But I agree. This is the spot we designed when we looked at all of these kind of things in this particular land is to build some multifamily housing to meet our requirements, give quality places to live, and many of them hopefully are working across the street at some of our business park and some of those areas as well. It also brings something that a lot of people don't realize. It brings a whole new group of people. I don't know how many units they would build, but say 400 additional people come in. That becomes 400 additional customers to our businesses in the community and those types of things as well. So while I respect the fact that people want to maintain open space, this isn't one of those that we should do. We've already got the access through the trail. This is made for development. Let's let it be development, and there's no more reason to talk about it, no more reason to delay it. Let's get on with it, pass it on, and hope that it's developed sooner than later. Thank you.
Any more discussion? Councilmember Harris.
Well, I happen to think there's a reason to talk a bit more about it. And I said something nice about the city manager, but we had this discussion several months ago about structural revenue. Construction is not structural revenue. It's not variable structural revenue. It's lovely to get the one-time money, but when you actually drill down on the ongoing revenue from multifamily, it's not super great. Multifamily housing is wonderful, support it all the way, okay? But somebody told me a long time ago in municipal government, when somebody offers you land, take it, full stop, okay? You will never regret it, any portion. The 130 feet or, whatever, it's, it sounds fine, it's difficult without a picture, but it seems to me that having that extra buffer is worth consideration. But to Council Member Oxiger's point, my motion essentially was to direct the city to do that research. Let's call it $10,000. We don't know, but basically the idea is simply to defer the decision, get the answers to the questions you raise, which are extremely valid, or, for example, simply getting a picture describing that 130 feet so that we understand what the actual buffer is with or without, and then come back on the 6th. And my experience with WSDOT, looking at their parcels with the port, with SeaTac, is that they have been willing to negotiate on certain things. Or maybe they'll tell us to pound sand, but we don't need to decide tonight. And again, whenever anyone offers you an opportunity to obtain land, you gotta do everything possible, because once you surrender it, it's over, okay? But we have become addicted over time to any one-time revenue opportunity, and we have got to get out of that. I'll just say, regarding any kind of housing, I completely support building housing, but one of the fascinating things at the last Economic Development Committee meeting, I fully support having the city doing an analysis so you look at every type of property use and you really look at, okay, what ongoing, real structural revenue it generates, okay, depending on the zoning. That's a discussion we've never had, and I salute Ms. Caffrey for bringing it even into this universe here. It's never happened. I've been watching since 2008, and we're making decisions based on what, money might come in blind. And I just would fully support just having the city put in that small amount of money and come back, and if the decision is the same, fine. But at least we did the work, and I think it would be worth the $10,000 simply to have the research for future projects. This is valuable information for any number of future items we would do. So for that reason, I would ask you to, all my colleagues, to support that notion. Thank you.
I have a question. How many RCO grants can you obtain in any given cycle? Does anybody know?
I don't know. And I'm like.
Can you
looking
apply
out
for
randomly
5
to
or-
staff. Anybody want to make eye contact? No,
Can you
I don't.
apply for 5 RCO grants by February 10th and obtain 2 of them?
I guess
Sample
I can
question.
take a shot at that. I think, one, do we have staff to apply for 5? No, that's what the city manager mentioned. We'd have to outsource some of that. Generally, with granting agencies, you can apply for as many as you want. They're generally not going to award you.
That's kind of what I'm saying.
Yeah.
If you've got,
So, yeah, it's for all of King County.
right,
And so, I believe that there's there's probably an equity argument, and there's a committee that reviews all these, and they all, assuming they would like to spread them out throughout the county.
And I would say you just provided me direction to apply for a grant for a different piece of property.
Right, right. Kind of what I'm getting at. So, any other questions? I have, okay, or comments, go ahead, Councilmember Grace Matsui.
I would like to offer an alternative motion to direct staff to apply for Conservation Futures grant with the match waiver as an option by February 10th.
Okay. So if this passes, then this cancels the first motion, is what we're saying here. It just, the first motion dies because this is an alternative.
Yeah, I guess this is a motion to amend the first motion.
Okay, so there's a second. Any discussion? Councilmember Oxiger.
Simply, let's exhaust all avenues to try and achieve, our primary directives. We're not talking about a terrible amount of time, but we're going to exhaust all opportunities to try and fulfill what we've been told and what's been indicated that our citizens want. And, we've had very few instances where people have been this vocal. And I think we do them a disservice if we don't turn over every last stone in order to try and have the ultimate amount of information that we need in order to make this decision. I urge that we pass.
Deputy Mayor Steinmetz.
Yeah, I'd urge you to vote no on the amendment. Let's stick to the plan. We have the plan. This has been a long process of coming to this plan. And if even we don't have the money, where are we going to get the money for this? Let's just make the decision and get it done.
Councilmember Grace Matsui, and then Councilmember Harris.
Thank you. I do hope that you would consider at least exhausting the possibility of getting up to $5.3 million in free money that we tax ourselves. We agreed in this state, that in this county specifically, that we would dedicate an enormous amount of money to preserving open space. Conservation Futures budget is close to $80 million a year. So if we were able to get the match waiver, that would be a nearly free piece of land. We would have the incurring costs of maintaining an open space like we would for any park here. And a park is an amenity. It is something that attracts businesses, people, gives place to recreate, to enjoy nature, for habitat for animals and things like that. And so there are other ways to achieve those growth goals, and I would ask you to reject the idea that this parcel is going to help us meet all of our growth management goals. There are other parcels. There are other places that could be upzoned. There are other places that could be rezoned. There are many places that we could have more middle housing come in and increase the number of density that we have in different parts of our cities. So to say that this is part of a plan and that we need this ultimately and this is the only way to meet our goals, unfortunately, is a bit of an exaggeration. So I hope that you would support this motion.
Councilmember Harris.
Thank you. I will support Councilmember Grace Matsui's motion, and I will hope that the city manager will take this as just an incentive to contact Forterra and perhaps other agencies. In other words, not take this literally. And again, I want to compliment the exemplary energy that the city manager has put into this on short notice. We have many people who show up from Redondo and the Marina District and everything, and they will weigh in heavily on issues of interest to them. But note the short notice here, how many letters the city got, okay, in like 4 or 5 days. all right, with this one image. And imagine if there had been that community interest, awareness of the item over weeks and months, you would have had this place packed. It is only the short window that has made it, even within this, okay? So really that sample should give you a sense that there is a wider interest in the trail system and in tree canopy and in the bigger picture. So for that reason alone, it is worth putting in the energy to support this. This is the community will. Trust me on this. It's something for years and years we've been talking about having that connectivity, this last swath of tree cover from SR 509. So I fully support the motion. Thank you.
Councilmember Mahoney.
Well, let's just be transparent here, Councilmember Harris. Most of the emails and stuff were generated off of communication you made. It wasn't that, it was all these people in the community and so forth. It was a concerted effort, that's what it was. It's form letter, it's not what I would call genuine. Yes, I think there's some people that see it your same way, but it was formulated, it was orchestrated. You're overemphasizing that the people had this will. People, and including that, what was happening here is you weren't communicating all the story, just your story. And that is a problem. It was tonight that people got to see the complexity of what the decision is. So when you say what you said before, that really doesn't hold water in this deal because it was self-generated. And I just want to make that clear before we take the vote.
Point of order.
No, it's not a point of order. You're just, first of all, I didn't call on you yet, but it's not a point of order. Just raise your hand.
Please.
If you want to make a statement.
A point of order is always in order.
All right, tell me what's being broken here first.
We should be addressing the issue, not addressing and going after individual council members. It's a matter of courtesy, and I think the council members' comments were out of line.
Okay, so, thank you. Councilmember Harris.
Thank you. I just want to point out, I orchestrated nothing. I put out a blog once a week, and I looked at every letter, and I think you can, I will publish them this week, and they are all individually written. They are everyone's own words and thoughts, okay? There was no form, in fact, it surprised me, because usually groups do generate some form of template. And in this case, the council received a bajillion letters, and they are all passionately handwritten. They get many, in fact, they get many details wrong because people do have passion about it, but it's, but the passion, the pain they feel is real, even if they don't get the details right. That, in fact, is the bona fides, is that they express what they want, even if they miss some of the bits. Thank you.
I am. Okay. This is gonna degrade. So the motion is to defer what Councilmember Grace Matsui said. So
Okay, so I took that not as a deferral, I took it as a direction to apply for the grant with the match waiver. That's what I took the motion to be.
Okay, and so your assignment is going to be to write for 2 grants before February 10th, correct?
Yes.
Okay?
Yep.
And, all right.
But point of order, but we come back and we make the decision on the 6th, or no? I just want to understand where the decision point is, just.
The decision, the decision on what? She's asking, Councilmember Grace Matsui is asking for us to direct the staff to write for this grant and include the match waiver. That's the decision. That's what she's asking, write for this grant.
Okay, but there was a prior motion from Councilmember Nutting, I believe, to decline.
No, to decline the offer. That's also the motion on the,
Motion to decline the offer.
and that is still on the table. And so if we do this, then we also have to go back and answer decline the offer. This is a motion on direction, but then we have to decide whether we're going to decline the offer.
That's the clarity, that they're
They're-
two independent motions.
They are.
Very good,
And
thank
if
you.
we pass this one, we are not declining the motion tonight. Correct? Correct.
Correct. I'm calling an outsourced grant writer to prepare a grant for submission by February 10th.
And then this decline motion can simply be tabled. It's already been moved and seconded. Then we won't make that decision. This motion will not be complete until we open again. You don't have to make the motion again. What we would do then is when this came back, whatever we find out, this motion's open, and then we vote on it. And depending on what
That's what I'm saying, but
happens.
that'll happen at the 6th meeting, right?
No, it will happen when she finds out the answer to whether the grants get accepted or not.
Point of clarification, my understanding is Councilmember Grace Matsui's motion was a motion to amend the original motion.
Right.
So-
Wasn't clear.
As was indicated by the city attorney.
Yes.
Okay. Could somebody, either the attorney or Councilmember Grace Matsui, say the motion again for clarity, please? What are we voting on right now? Go ahead and say your motion, please.
Sure, I'll try and be more clear.
Okay.
I move to amend the original motion to direct staff to apply for Conservation Futures Grant with the match waiver, and I'll add in, or other opportunities for grant or an escrow-like arrangement that you might get from Forterra.
Okay, so that's not an amendment. That is just a new motion. So,
Well, I think whatever you decide, I mean, on this motion is going to dictate the first motion.
all
So
right.
We could just move to the vote. Unless
let's
there's more
do it.
discussion.
All in favor of Councilmember Grace Matsui's motion, raise your right hand. Councilmember Oxiger, Councilmember Grace Matsui, and Councilmember Harris, all opposed, raise your right hand. Deputy Mayor Steinmetz, Councilmember Nutting, Councilmember Mahoney, and myself. So that motion does not pass. So the next motion on the other motion still on the table was moved and seconded. Any more discussion on that? Okay. Several points. I'm going to go through them very fast. We've highly invested, not just a regular, highly invested in the plan that is up on the screen. The City of Des Moines, now, the reason I want to answer this is because there is a little bit, I felt a little bit of panic. We're losing our tree canopy quickly, we're not replacing it, and we're desperate. I do want to say for a city our size, we have 225 acres per capita. That's very high. We've acquired several acres since I was elected, and there's slated for at least, that I know, about 25 acres in the next 10 years. And those acres that we will acquire will be treed and replanted. Some of those would be very healthy and qualify for the 15-foot tree canopy count. We are continually preparing for affordable opportunities, not just what we were presented with tonight. We are always preparing for affordable opportunities to acquire green space through these grants. I'm highly in favor of green space. I've got 100 western red cedar trees sitting in my yard right now waiting to be planted. I am a tree hugger and a lover. I name my trees in my yard. I And I participate regularly in what goes on, whether it's Port of Seattle plantings, whether it's ripping out invasives, whatever. I've done it so many times. A lot of these people that are so highly frustrated about this, I don't see them at the events I go to. Not saying they don't care, but this, would there be an army of volunteers to help? There is not an army in the events that I show up to. And our one park steward left in our city, she works so hard. We have one park steward in our city, and she's always looking for help. She doesn't get the help she needs. Our tree canopy, is it terrible? Absolutely not. There's a formula for tree canopy. It's called 3-30-300. Everybody should be able to see 3 healthy trees from their house. A healthy urban canopy is 30%, and everybody should be able to be 300 meters from a healthy green space. The city of Des Moines is 29%. That's not horrible. That is the goal of a healthy urban canopy. And that is Tacoma's goal, is 29%. And we are already there. We've got a 3-to-1 tree replacement. We're working on our canopy. 4-to-1 is in the hopper. We've invested in this up on the screen. I already said that. I have made a promise when I knocked on few thousand doors in this both times that I am going to be developer friendly. I am going to be open to things like this. I want to be able to build housing, residential, commercial, and that's what I made a promise. I just did. And so this is our gateway corridor. Its destiny is commercial property. We talked about, I don't know if the taxpayers in the state of Washington or King County would want, I guess it would be up to them to approve it, but to take away a housing opportunity. We are challenged, and we don't have the money, but anyway, I am in favor of staying the course. We've got lots of opportunities coming forward in the future. Okay, that was my comment. All in favor, raise your right hand. Deputy Mayor Steinmetz, Councilmember Nutting, Councilmember Mahoney, myself, all opposed. Councilmember Oxiger, Councilmember Grace Matsui, and Councilmember Harris. It passes 4-3. All right. Next up, we have a webinar that is about an hour long. This subject has come up in several venues so far within I would say especially the last 10 months or so. This is one of them. It's not totally comprehensive, but the idea is to introduce our city and staff to what's going to happen in the region, they say from Vancouver to Vancouver, and what could happen in all of our cities. And I think there are some ideas here about what to consider as this moves forward into all of our cities. So I'm trying to, and many cities have already set aside a lot of funding in their budgets for projects large and small in preparation for I want to be really skinny. Yeah, well, ask her for some more. So that's what this is about. The idea was to be kind of comfortable and not help yourself to popcorn, and we're going to move forward in viewing this. Before we start, though, any questions or clarification about why we're looking at this tonight? Oh, I wanted to get this presentation in person. Some of these people that you're going to see up here, you know, like Leo Floor or the World Cup Commission, they've done a bunch of these, and I think they feel like their recordings are good enough now, so I couldn't secure an in-person presentation in time. Okay, that's where we're at.
It looks like a lot of folks know a lot about it, but we're about half and half with All In, and
could you pause it for just a sec?
need to learn more. So about 50.
Yep. I cut off the beginning of this on purpose because it was just a poll that she took. She wanted to find out who knew about the World Cup and who didn't. So that's what she's talking about. Okay, go ahead.
50. Thankfully, no one doesn't know what the World Cup is. So you are all in the right place. So thank you for that. I'm going to go ahead and end the poll for now. But I will, well, I'll leave it up. We'll let it keep going for now. But I am going to go ahead and introduce Sarah Clark, who is our first speaker today. Sarah is Director of Policy at the Seattle Metro Chamber and is going to be sharing a bit more about how this partnership came to be. And then we'll moderate the rest of the program. Thank you.
Thanks, Lee. Welcome, everyone. We are thrilled to bring you this program today. And before we dig into the content, I just want to set the stage for the why of our work and the Seattle Metro Chamber FIFA World Cup Seattle 26 partnership and the business readiness work we're proposing to do on both sides of the Cascades. So first off, the pandemic really exposed gaps in our state and local economic development programming, especially for women and minority-owned small and micro businesses. This is an opportunity where, there's always more that we can do. Two, although our region has never hosted an event of this size and scale, we can look to recent large events in the Seattle metro area, like the 2023 All-Star Week and the record-breaking Taylor Swift concert, and see that as a region, we did not do enough to prepare the business community to be ready for these events. And as a direct result, many businesses lost money, and women and minority-owned small and micro businesses bore the brunt of this impact. So we've learned our lesson, and as we got confirmation that Seattle would be a host city, our team started meeting and brainstorming on what we could do differently this time and hopefully have a lasting impact. But yeah, to have different outcomes on both sides of the Cascades. So we're really excited to share our proposal and progress with you today. And we've invited our good friend April Putney, the Chief Strategy Officer for the FIFA World Cup Seattle 2026 Host Committee, to set the stage for us. So April, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Sarah. It's great to be with you all today, recognizing that many of you are already fully in the know about World Cup. Warms my heart, but some of you still want a need a baseline. I've got a brief presentation to just make sure we're all on the same page, and for folks that already know, feel like they know what's happening, hopefully there's some new information here about opportunities in the future. Real quickly, as Sarah mentioned, I'm with the local organizing committee. Folks may know this, but just as a reminder, FIFA has a requirement that all cities that are host cities for the World Cup, and you can move on to the next slide, and move up right on to the next one as well. And you can see that there are 16 host cities for this World Cup, that there be a single entity that is the sort of one-stop entity for everything FIFA needs from our community, and then everything our community needs from FIFA goes through us as well. And we're tasked as our local nonprofit organization here to make sure that we have and deliver a region that is ready to host the world's largest sporting event ever held in 2026, in just 547 days away. So again, 16 host cities. Of particular note, want to flag for folks just the scale that we're talking about. You see that its expected viewership is more than 19 billion people. With the 6 matches Seattle is hosting, we're going to have more than 6, well, I guess this will be on the next slide. We expect to have 2 billion people. And I think a key thing on this slide is pointing out that Seattle-Vancouver connection is the second closest of all 16 cities. So we're really excited to be showcasing and marketing our Cascadia region as a whole to the rest of the world. Moving on to the next slide. As I mentioned, with the 6 matches, we are expecting more than 2 billion unique people to be watching the World Cup matches here in Seattle, and to be, seeing everything that Washington State has to offer. Up to 750,000 people will be here as well during a 3-week period between our first match and our last match. And only about half of them will have tickets. So just a lot of people here, nearly doubling the size of the city over that 3-week period to be here. Again, expecting a lot of travel between Seattle and Vancouver. We don't yet have the modeling on how many people, but that is something we are working on. And this is going to be a statewide experience. As Sarah mentioned, the goal is to be activating on both sides of the mountain across the state. We have proposed base camps in Spokane, at Gonzaga, in Renton, at the Sounders facility. We are anticipating one down in the University of Portland, and of course Vancouver will have one as well. There's also one down in Boise, in Idaho, so really sort of bringing the full corners of the state together. We have multiple fan activations planned. You can move ahead to the next slide as well. And here is just the schedule in case you haven't seen. These are the 6 days that our games are going to be played in Seattle in 2026. And you can see from the Vancouver times, the schedule really does align pretty well to facilitate people to be going back and forth and not just staying here in one location. So this is why we think that will happen. And we're very excited to be hosting the U.S. men's national team on Juneteenth for our second game, and then kicking off Pride weekend as well on the 26th. And you can move on to the next slide. Go ahead and skip that one again. As it relates to business opportunities, we really wanted to identify that from our perspective, there's 3 different sort of categories and spaces that businesses can be participating. First and foremost, through our official events, with FIFA official events with the matches, and then at the fan celebration that we will be hosting at Seattle Center. And so opportunities to participate there are really, I think for the fan celebration, are really focused on the vendors that we'll be contracting with, as well as we'll be having a showcase, made in Washington showcase area. And so working to identify businesses that can be showing their products there and selling their products there. Second is a formal partnership with our organization for our events that we're hosting that aren't FIFA events, but our local organizing committee events. And so those are the 9 fan zones that you saw on an earlier slide. We haven't named those locations yet, but they will be named in early January. And then our legacy activations. For some of you who've heard this already, you know that we are really taking a legacy approach that I'll get to in just a second. I want to also flag that third space where I think the most businesses will really have an opportunity is local maximization by having more people in the state and here celebrating World Cup and being here. And I think that's really where our partnership with the Seattle Chamber is going to spend most of its time helping to prepare businesses to be ready. This is a space where we want to share as much information as we have when we have it, so that we can be transparent about expectations and what we're seeing with, where a visitor is going to be coming from, how long do we think they're going to be staying, etc. You may know this, but World Cup visitors, because it's an event that happens only every 4 years, it's usually the travelers that show up are people who stay longer than normal sporting events. They're not here just for a night. They are usually here for closer to a week. And, that is an exciting opportunity to help ensure that folks get the chance to travel throughout the state and not just in Seattle. And so we are really excited about this partnership to make sure that our business community and our small business community in particular is ready for this opportunity and to leverage it. Moving on to the next slide, you can see, statewide activations. I mentioned this a little bit, but we again have major fan celebration at Seattle Center, and then 9 fan zones across the state. These are really the sort of premier places that people will be able to watch the games, and sort of be in World Cup vibe experience outside of the stadium itself, which obviously has limited capacity. This is in addition to, any restaurant or bar or pop-ups that may be happening organically, or that you may want to be organizing in your businesses as well. Moving on to the next slide. I mentioned that shared legacy approach that we are trying to take. We're really focused on that 1962 World's Fair avenue, in which we want to ensure we have a safe, accessible, fun, inclusive event, while also leveraging this moment of the global spotlight for our community to leave that positive legacy. So we are working on legacies that will be sort of permanent, like our partners at the Rave Foundation, who's works with Seattle Sounders, who are building mini fields, mini play fields for improving access for kids to be able to play. They've already built 26 fields. They're working on building 26 more. Our partners at the Seattle Chamber will be working on a small business toolkit that will be available, and I think evergreen for mega events in the future. Working with partners in labor and hospitality on a dispatch and training center for event-related workforce, and how can we ensure that that's something that we can be ready to help facilitate folks there. And then the improvements we're making in Lumen Field, in Seattle University, in University of Washington, at Gonzaga, are things that will all help attract more mega events, whether soccer related or otherwise, to our region. And please move on to the next slide. And can just talk a little bit about that small business readiness. We're really thinking about it sort of in concentric circles, like you see here, where, first and foremost at the stadium area surrounding Lumen Field with Pioneer Square, Chinatown International District, and SoDo, and then moving out from that, King County, and then again statewide. Really focused on the inner space, on providing direct liaisons in each of those neighborhoods so that they can be providing technical assistance. I think the chamber will be doing something similar at a county-wide scale. And then at the statewide space, really trying to get a toolkit to be available, and seeking funding from the state to be able to provide technical assistance and grant support for businesses to be getting whatever they need to be ready as well. And moving on to the next slide, wanted to also make sure that folks saw these numbers that were released by our partners Visit Seattle yesterday. The preliminary economic impact analysis showing that nearly $1 billion of total economic benefit to the region, and supporting nearly 21,000 jobs, with more than 100 million in state and local taxes revenues generated. This is super exciting. We also know this only happens if you all are ready and prepared, like Sarah mentioned. So we're very excited to be partnering with you. These numbers are also limited to within King County at this time. A future analysis will be done in December, after the teams are announced, after tickets are sold, et cetera, that will be brought into statewide. So again, this is the minimum benefit that we expect coming to this state. And I think we can move on to the next slide. And sorry, skip ahead. Sorry, that coloring is wrong, but this is sort of just a quick roadmap to 2026, just so you have a general understanding of what's happening when. Like I said, in January, we're going to be announcing those 9 fan zones. Shortly after that, our partners at the Seattle Sports Commission will be releasing a community playbook as it relates to watch party guidelines, in case folks want to be planning things like that. We'll be launching our volunteer program in September, and then FIFA will be announcing the teams themselves in December. Base camps will be selected. That's when we'll know for sure if Gonzaga and Spokane are chosen. Visit Seattle will update that economic study, and then fan activations and game times obviously start in June. Want to flag one really important thing on here, that Club World Cup, and you can move on to the next slide that makes that even more clear. You may have heard that Club World Cup is being hosted here next summer. It's very exciting. Club World Cup is a tournament, it's the first time that the tournament has been sort of worked this way, but it is a tournament where it is more or less the World Series of soccer. It is the Tournament of Champions for clubs, so organizations like Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, the Seattle Sounders, as opposed to the World Cup in 2026, which is a tournament of nations. So countries will be playing in that one. World Cup in 2026, largest sporting event ever hosted in the world, and everything I talked about earlier is true of that. Club World Cup is an exciting new, much bigger tournament than previous, but it is not nearly the same. We're not expecting fan activations outside of the stadium. We do have an amazing lineup of teams that are going to be playing here, with the best team from France, the third best team, Club Atletico from Madrid, the best team from Argentina, teams from Brazil, Japan, really great teams that are going to be playing here. And so we are expecting folks traveling internationally, but not having major fan activations, and probably staying in the Seattle area itself. So just wanted to clarify those two distinct things, because they are coming up, and I think probably new ideas for everybody. And so with that, happy to stop there and pass things back to Sarah. And this, of course, does have our contact info if people want to follow up with us directly as well.
Thank you so much, April. All right. Well, next I want to introduce two of my colleagues, Lynette Buffington, the Seattle Metro Chamber's Chief of Staff, and Vaughn Taylor, our Vice President of Economic Development, who are going to share more about our role and vision to get our region ready for FIFA World Cup 2026. So I'll turn it over to you guys. Thanks.
Well, good morning. Yes, it's still morning. I'm happy to see everybody here. I'm Lynette Buffington. I am the Chief of Staff, and it's really fun to look in the participant list and see so many of my chamber colleagues from previous roles listed. And so I'm happy to see you here, even though I don't see your faces. Thanks for coming and joining us today. So as April and Sarah mentioned, there's just some great opportunities coming down the pike. We've learned from past experiences, what works, what doesn't work. We've also heard businesses loud and clear. You go down, a Reddit thread or a Facebook or anything like that around these major events in any city, and we've recognized some common themes about what helps businesses be ready and resilient for these opportunities and what doesn't. We know that scarce information creates confusion. A good example is the Club World Cup versus World Cup. It's not so much scarce as much as we're overloaded with all these great opportunities, and we need to clarify what is what. We know that the separation between organizers and the business community can cause problems and missed opportunities. And then we know mixed messages for residents and businesses and tourists about these opportunities, engaging with business districts and really capitalizing on these economic opportunities can also cause problems. All of this we've learned through the past in other cities. I've looked at what Rio did, what Detroit did, what LA did, what Las Vegas is trying to do, and understood how businesses are being engaged or, again, not effectively. We know that direct financial assistance works. We learned that with COVID. We know that toolkits and guides work. We know that technical assistance in implementing these toolkit ideas and best practices is really important. We know folks need communication and marketing support, and we know we need to have events to increase community and local awareness and get people excited and connected to the opportunity. Also, as April mentioned, the World Cup is going to have immense job creation, and many of you as businesses are going to be the job creators, especially in the hospitality sector. There's going to be tax revenue that's going to help our region and our state. And there will be direct spending into into your businesses. So these are all just tremendous. Um, Through all of this, and as Sarah talked about at the beginning, the Seattle Metro Chamber is looking at how to make sure that businesses thrive during this opportunity, that we're ready, and that we're also resilient enough to be ready for the next opportunity that comes this way, because there's plenty of entities out there trying to promote our region for even larger events. So we've looked at, as the business liaison for the World Cup, we've tried to identify some strategies, and Vaughn's going to talk about those in a second. But it boils down to providing technical assistance, finding ways for access to capital, making sure we share information. Much like this event today, we will continue to do information sharing. And then, centralizing some of this around your own communities across the state or on both sides of the Cascades. And we are going to be convening folks, and that's where you all come in. We have plenty of partners at the local level that we are working with, but we'll be convening chambers, and we'll be looking with our partners and consistently and repetitively, trying to share this information and get feedback. It's really important. There's, like I said before, there's consistent information sharing. Now, you guys all want to know what we're doing and what's going on, so I'm going to pass it to Vaughn, and he's going to talk in greater detail about the scope of work we're doing and how it applies to the statewide impact and some localized impact. So I'll let Vaughn Taylor, our Director of Economic Development, go to his part. And these are our partners that we're already working with, but if you look across the bottom there, we're looking, to work with industry and business associations. So we're slowly but surely putting together what I would call bundles of partners for different just conversations, and you can expect some of that effort to kick off in the new year. And now for Vaughn, I'll let him take it from there and talk about our scope of work.
Thank you, Lynette. And as mentioned, I'm Vice President of Economic Development in Seattle Metro Chamber, and happy to lead our economic development efforts with many partners within our region. So in short, our number one goal is helping businesses get ready and stay ready before and after FIFA World Cup 2026. And the initiative is designed so that we maximize economic opportunities for all businesses, but especially small and BIPOC owned, while also fostering collaboration across Washington State. So one of the key strategies is expanding our community business connector model across King County and beyond. It's our award-winning program that's shown that collaborating with trusted messengers who are deeply rooted in the community is the most effective way to support businesses. Our business owners can feel secure knowing that someone can meet them where they are, and also work with them closely to find assistance. As you know, many businesses have questions about access to capital, business planning and marketing. Others are seeking assistance with government forms or grants. And for some, it's important to have a language interpreter. And we can't forget our folks located in local and unincorporated areas. We just want to increase the presence of community business connectors in business districts and downtowns, and also where resource connections are needed the most. So when we talk about how we help businesses prepare for World Cup, we're looking to extend technical assistance beyond King County and to support small business in the state of Washington. This involves funding our ADOs. These are associate development organizations, as well as chambers that deliver customized training and resources. Our grant allocations will prioritize initiatives that directly benefit businesses, ensuring that equity remains the forefront of our efforts. And to be World Cup ready, we'll have also hosting info sessions, and also as a chamber, we'll provide value in that way, both online and in-person information sessions. Next slide. And ultimately, we want to give businesses information they need to get ready, as I said. So we all believe, again, with our partners at the LOC, that effective communication and collaboration are essential for our success in this initiative. So some of the things that we're doing with our chamber communication tools is that we're delivering the signature small business readiness playbook in partnership with the LOC. But in addition to that, we'll coordinate our chambers, our business improvement areas, also our industry associations to ensure consistent messaging, but also discuss any World Cup themed business strategies that we can design and implement together. We'll also host forums bringing together the business community to strengthen partnerships and optimize our World Cup related business opportunities. These convenings will ensure that among our stakeholders, fostering a united approach and maximizing the full economic impact for this event. So in summary, Seattle Metro Chamber, along with its partners, are one, driving the community business connector approach to reach small businesses. Two, invest in technical assistance and business grants beyond King County. Three, host World Cup ready business informational sessions. And four, deliver communications for statewide stakeholder engagement. So with that, give it back to my colleagues at the Chamber.
Thank you, Vaughn and Lynette. So I think one question that might be in everyone's mind at this point is how are we going to pull this off? Where's the money going to come from? So I'm really excited to announce actually that we were just recently included in the 2025 King County biennial budget. And we received $500,000 to start doing our work in King County. But in order for us to bring our full vision to become a reality, we need all of your help during the 2025 state session to ensure that we get the funds we need to help businesses on both sides of the Cascades get World Cup ready. So we are asking state leaders for $6 million, which, as Vaughn and Lynette just shared, will help us provide grants to small women, minority-owned businesses, and technical assistance statewide. Will help with marketing and statewide communications, and also fund chamber convenings and regional World Cup ready community events to get local communities and businesses hyped for the games in the spring of 2026. So our strategy is that along with our partners, the local organizing committee, we're going to have one World Cup ask in 2025 that will include our business readiness $6 million operating request ask, and also a nearly $39 million capital World Cup venue readiness ask, and third and last, a public safety and security operating budget request that's $9 million. And I'm sure most of you are aware of the projected deficit at the state level. And so it's really important, one, that we create a large coalition of support for our World Cup ask. And two, that we are all using the same messaging and are on the same page during legislative session. So after this webinar, we will follow up with attendees. I am going to share our advocacy one-pager with all of you so you can see in more detail what our state budget request is. And then also a sign-on letter that we will be sending to the legislature right before session that we hope all of you will sign on to and support. So with that, I'm going to hand it back to Lee. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. I think Lynette has something else quickly for us. Or no?
We did kind of zoom through that on the PowerPoint. The FIFA World Cup page website is tremendous. And I recommend you just save it as a favorite. But up towards the top right, there is an area called opportunities. And if you access that, you can see the opportunities to directly contract with our FIFA World Cup office and also some workforce development programs. And I'm not sure what else are going to add to that page. April, you're free to interrupt me or correct me. But I want to, there's always a lot of questions, and currently there's questions in the chat about direct contracting opportunities, and this is where those will be listed. So please don't sleep on that tab.
Yeah, thanks Lynette for flagging that. And in particular, if you click on that tab, there's it's where any open RFPs that are either our local organizing committee has or that we know FIFA itself has. So just as a point of reference, we are hosting obviously all of on that opportunities slide earlier that I showed where there were three different levels. We are, the LOC partnerships, and we are the Seattle Fan Celebration, the Fan Festival. But FIFA is responsible for all things related to the match and the games at the tournament and the hospitality and things that will be out at the tournament. So they'll also be doing a lot of contracting themselves. So as soon as we hear of any contracting needs they have, we post that on our website as well. And then there is a space if you scroll down on this website here where you can proactively put yourself forward as a vendor who's interested. And when we are going to go out to bid on something in your area, this would automatically add you to that list.
Great, thank you.
Perfect. All right, so let's move to Q&A. Vaughn, Lynette, April, Sarah, if you can all be ready. I'm not sure who all the questions will go to. So first off, I see a question from Sam. What kind of support can advisory firms offer that would be most helpful to the chamber right now?
I'm going to mentally, telepathically say, Vaughn, this would be your question.
Sure. No, great question. We always like to work with partners and also consulting firms in our region. I would say there will be an opportunity for an RFP to design and create the playbook, but I guess the immediate opportunities would be when we have our World Cup ready info sessions, and then we'll have opportunities where subject matter experts can talk about some of the ways businesses can be ready and just be prepared in a way for World Cup and its in business operations. So that's one immediate way how you can contribute as a consultant.
Great, thank you. We have another question here. Francisco wants to know what steps have already been taken, or what does that process look like to creating that small business toolkit that was mentioned?
Yes, so that toolkit, it's still in its early stages where we're having conversations about what it looks like. But before we get there, it's about talking to a small group of advisors that can help guide, again, design the RFP that actually go out and find who would be the actual principal and creator in collaboration with community and the chamber and its partners to create the World Cup. The small business readiness playbook. So that's to be determined in short.
Excuse me, great. All right, Derek asks, the chamber's communications plan mentions coordinating with other chambers, BIAs, industry associations, and ADOs. Will this also include cities and government?
Sure. So right now we're focusing on where we know we do have the funding in terms of King County. So we're already trying to put our work group together for local governments in King County with briefings and things like that. If we get our, the funding is secured from the state, then we will modify the localized model, include a much larger model of convening impacted municipalities and entities as well.
Great. Let's see here.
We skipped Olivia's. Is the official campaign "We Are 26 Seattle"? Is that the tagline, April?
We Are 26 Seattle or We Are Seattle is the social handles that we use, yes.
Thanks.
Great. Sorry about that. Jill asks, it feels like the Club World Cup in 25 is the perfect test for the 26 World Cup in areas of transportation, safety, security, activation. Is there a Club World Cup organization that is coordinating with April's team, or is that April's team?
What a great question. There is not a local organizing committee for the Club World Cup because it is really more of a stadium event, sort of, like a international friendly that we've hosted before or like a Seahawks game. And so we are partnering with the First and Goal, the Seattle Seahawks at Lumen Field are the primary folks organizing for this since it's a stadium event, and the Seattle Sports Commission is coordinating with them as well.
Great, thank you. Will there be help with permits, like cost and quick access for businesses to think outside the box when it comes to things like outdoor seating, et cetera, as they're maybe planning their activations?
That might be a collective approach, meaning the local organized committee in their playbook or toolkit might have some ways to inform that process, but also our playbook might have some of those components. And most part, as we're planning along the way and developing tools and communications, I think that's one of the main questions that we'll get from municipalities and businesses that will start talking about what they can do to help streamline that process in their community. But of course, as a chamber and our other partners, we do have state connections and relationships where we can help in a more broader sense of regulatory. But on the ground, I think that's going to be a collective effort because every process and procedure is different at their local municipality.
Thank you. We have a couple of Vancouver questions, so I'm going to lump those together. Just clarifying, I'm 99% sure the answer is no, but the Seattle FIFA LOC committee is not managing the Vancouver process as well, correct?
That's right, Lee. There's a local host committee there. It's actually the city of Vancouver is the host committee that we partner with. We work with them on a very regular basis, though.
Great. So another kind of Vancouver related question, they just had Taylor Swift there last weekend, and that showcased some issues with big event cross-border travel. Are there plans for know before you go communication tools for that travel and international ticket purchasers?
Yeah, huge priority, particularly since the Vancouver-Seattle connection is the second closest, and the only one certainly that involves a border crossing. So we have been having lots of conversations again with our Vancouver counterparts, but really led by FIFA because their point on intercity transportation. And so coordinating with them, as well as Border Patrol for both Canada and the United States on what are the opportunities to enhance the Know Before You Go campaigns. FIFA requires anyone that's coming and that will have a ticket will have to use the FIFA app. And so that really gives us a great opportunity to share a bunch of information, and usually other people that travel here as well, even if they don't have tickets, will use that app as well because it's going to have all of the handy information about how you travel locally and anything you know. So I think between those and the partnership with the Customs and Border that we are really working to maximize that education campaign, particularly because the rules are different, right? So we want to make sure that people know, and aren't thinking that they can just drive across the border if they have a DUI or something like that. So really wanting to make sure, as well as trying to do an enhanced campaign around, access to Nexus cards and things like that.
Great. Thank you. All right. Linnea is very interested in how we are accommodating all of these people. Are we looking at other cities with direct flights to Seattle for them? Is that part of the program? What does that look like?
Yeah, with up to 750,000 people over a 3-year or over a 3-week period during our peak tourism season, that is a very real question. We are anticipating that hotels are going to be booked, far outside of the Seattle King County area. I think, up and down I-5 across I-90 is sort of what our baseline expectation is right now, particularly I think north between here and Bellingham, given that Vancouver connection is very real. I know that airlines are talking about bumping up flights and seeing what's possible there. I was just having a conversation with someone with the Spokane airport, having that exact conversation in light of them potentially hosting a base camp in particular.
Great, thank you. I do want to flag one of our, someone dropped in the Q&A that the Office of Economic Development Special Permits team can help with some of the issues from that earlier question around like outdoor seating and kind of that permitting process. So thank you, Olivia, for sharing that.
And Lee,
Pause. I know I'm seeing some questions come in that I think can be answered with one answer from April. Can you talk about the difference between the small business playbook and the community playbook, and what their official titles are and what the content looks like? Yeah.
Yeah, sorry that all of these names are very, very similar. So the small business toolkit is more, is exactly how Vaughn described it earlier, right? It's really trying to aimed at the businesses directly and the technical assistance and things you'd want to be thinking about as to how you could best leverage this moment. The community playbook is more aimed at watch party viewing parties, and what are the different types of rules or restrictions that apply to that, so that people can, and what are best practices for hosting those sorts of things. So more aimed at like a neighborhood. Obviously businesses can utilize them as well, but it's more aimed at like a neighborhood sort of aspect.
Thank you.
And what's the delivery timeline on the community one?
So it's in this spring. So I think it's February or March. I can't quite remember what the timeline is, but that's what we're aiming for.
Of 25 or 26?
Yes, of 25.
Okay, great, thank you. And then Vaughn, were you sharing something?
Yeah, I was just gonna make a point about permitting. So with that, this is an excellent opportunity to kind of leverage the Seattle Metro Chambers platform to give us topics like this, so we can spotlight potentially other city partners and what they're doing to get a World Cup ready, and maybe a topic about permitting and what's been successful in other counties or cities across the state. So keep those type of questions coming. That would help us to formulate types of topics that can help.
Great.
Be different.
And I can put the slide back up with Vaughn, Lynette, and Sarah's contact information at the end if you have questions for them after this, and April's was shared as well. Jordan wants to know, what's the best way for media production companies to get involved? Will there be a contact list of stakeholders, or will it be addressed through RFPs?
Yeah, it'll mostly be addressed through RFPs, at least for production companies that we need. We have some firms that we're already working with, but I imagine we're going to be expanding that. So anything that we have, it'll again be on that website that Lynette showed, Seattle FWC26.org/opportunities.
Great. And then Derek's question, a resource with any legal requirements for showing the matches at watch parties. It sounds like that will be in the community playbook.
That's in the community playbook that the Sports Commission is working on.
Great. Amy wants to know more information about the mini pitches that you mentioned, the process for building mini pitches.
Yeah, I will put the Rave Foundation's website in an answer there, so that can be listed there. But the Rave Foundation is who have been taking the lead on that. So I'll again put their link in the chat, and you can see the different places across the state that have already opened for those fields and what exactly comes with them.
Great. Jesse wants to know if FIFA has allocated advertising budgets to host cities to promote tourism, or if all the funding is coming from state or city.
FIFA is responsible for hosting the games and sort of the operations of the games themselves, and in any promotion we want to do for the city or the state is generated locally, whether public or private funding.
Great, thank you. Let's see. Noah asks, is there a project or a plan to promote small businesses in Seattle specifically, like things to do while you're in town? Would that be in the app, or is there any other plan there?
Yeah, that would be, as mentioned, I keep saying this again, the collective effort and more than likely led by the City of Seattle and Office of Economic Development and their key partners to promote businesses in Seattle. And of course, we're working closely with them in our own backyard. So that will where that information would live.
And then I would also add, we will have, we're actually working on developing an app ourselves as well that'll be connected to the FIFA app. And it's intended to sort of be a gamification of tourism to promote small business activation around the city and around the state. And it's something that we're looking to have our beta version out in the summer so that we can start testing it and help promoting. And it'll be something along the lines of Pokemon Go, except soccer related, where you'll get to sort of like, head balls and things like that virtually. And then folks will get rewarded with FIFA related swag, so World Cup related swag. So really, we think things to help promote people moving across the community and going to visit small businesses. And then we'll have a calendar as well on our website that it will be a link to the FIFA app as well that has, the different things that are happening in the city for sure.
Cool. This question may be something directly to one of you offline, but looking at the current partners involved, is there any want or need for a banking institution to help with grants or as a resource for small businesses?
Answer is yes. Happy to take that call and talk about, because we worked with community banks, institutions, as well as regional national banks as well for that very thing. Especially we talk about community investment for small business. So happy to have a conversation about it.
Okay, great. So it sounds like that's a direct question to Vaughn, and I'll put the contact information up here now, actually, while we're talking. All right, we have a couple more minutes. Let's see if we can get any more questions. Do we know yet, are Alaska cruises planning to depart as normal from Seattle during this period?
Yeah, we are coordinating with the cruise industry. As far as I understand, it is still going to be during their normal departures as well.
Let's see.
Can we talk about Derek's question about the 750,000 visitors will be here, like how long they'll be here? I know, and I don't expect April to answer the second part of it. We've really gotten requests to, we can talk about this large volume of visitors, but what does a day even look like? So again, how long will visitors and teams be here? What do we expect? And then see if you can answer that part, April.
Yeah, so the average fan certainly stays for like I said, more than just a night or 2 nights. Like with typical sporting events, they're usually here closer to a week. We're working on getting more specific fan profile assumptions that we can have and share from FIFA. so that folks can sort of better tailor their activities and knowledge directly to the sort of typical fans that have traveled for World Cup. I think you probably saw on a slide earlier that in past World Cups, more than half of the fans have been from abroad. And so that is what we are expecting, and that also sort of corresponds to why they're staying longer than just a single night or two. It is really over that 750,000 750,000 people is over that 3-week period that we are hosting games. And so if you want to go back in this chart to the calendar of games for Seattle, the games, or the 3-week period lasting between the March 15th and June 15th and July 6th. For when our games here are happening locally. So that's that time frame that we're expecting. It is more than just a regular Taylor Swift or a sold out stadium event, because there are a lot of people that will come who don't have tickets. Because they just want to be a part of the experience, they want to be a part of the vibes, whether that's at the fan celebration in Seattle Center or across the state. I think most of them will be in the sort of the Seattle area for international fans, but we are working to get modeling from FIFA to help us understand how many folks who come from abroad that don't have tickets are likely to come and sort of still travel around the state as well. And I think the big thing here is we don't know how many people will be here in addition to those that have fans until we know what teams are going to play here and what nations will be here, right? And we don't find that out until December of 2026. So really just saving the best for last and helping to make it as hard as possible for operational planning purposes. But that is when we'll find out what teams play here. And so, premier teams usually show up with a lot more fans. I think I've heard Brazil usually travels with an entourage of 12,000 people who are here. And so that's the type of thing. This is the largest World Cup. That means they've doubled the number of teams that participate. So there's likely going to be a lot of first-time teams. In particular, Asia and Africa have 8 more teams that can qualify than previous World Cups. And with our proximity to Asia, we're really hopeful that we'd be able to get and have some of the teams from Asia playing here, and think that would be a really fun and amazing experience for the folks that live here. So again, I think we don't have a lot more information besides what we've shared already. We do, I think, in a future conversation that's focused on transportation, we have some modeling that we'll be able to show as to when we expect the biggest flow days for transportation related issues that I think help in some way with travel demands.
So I think that's good. I think we're saturated. So thank you for your patience. It would have been probably less than half that in person. So just to cap a couple of the largest sporting event in history, 750,000 people. 750,000 is the size of the city of Seattle proper. So they are kind of shipping. They're planning on receiving an entire city to this area from Vancouver to Vancouver. Largest World Cup in history, 2 billion views here in the Seattle. And if people are prepared, $1 billion in economic benefit. They figure 1 to 2 weeks on either side of that middle part. So, 5 to 6 weeks of visitors from all over the world. And I think one of the things that is interesting to recognize, those who come from all over the world, that takes a lot of financial resource to travel here with a partner or a family or even by yourself. So these people are invested in having an experience. And they're not generally going to be middle class or lower, right? So when they do come here, they're going to be able to spend money. And I think that's one of the things to consider for the cities as we host. Some things they talk about, there's, right in Seattle, it's gonna be right on Juneteenth, moving into Pride Weekend, and also right after that is, just right after is Independence Day, but that's also the 250-year anniversary of the United States. So a lot of cities around the country are probably planning a little bit more around that day, but the cities that are hosting these World Cup events that's going to probably be overshadowed by the World Cup for those cities. Anyway, I wanted to just bring to there are cities around that are doing stuff. Elliott Bay Connection Project, Terminal 91, the port's doing something there. Partnering with the aquarium. Other cities like Renton is building a World Cup square. So I just wanted to put in our mind to think about what might come through our city, and there's economic opportunities. I'm disappointed as we are watching this to find out I could not get into these FIFA websites, and the playbook is not ready. They did mention March, so hoping that we can be connected to that for our small businesses. And then the idea was to kind of just get the juices flowing in our minds or hearts. Like, this big opportunity is coming to town. Is there anything the city of Des Moines can do other than encourage our small businesses? So that was the idea. Lots of people coming to town. If you guys, we don't have a lot of extra income. Like, some cities have set aside, hundreds of thousands of dollars to prepare for the World Cup in their budgets already. But if we have any ideas, that was what this was for. Any questions, input, thoughts? Oh, you guys settle down, causing a ruckus. Okay. Yeah, Councilmember Nutting.
I just guess that, I don't guess. I guess my only thought is if we are impacted at all, is there going to be any reimbursement from the city of Seattle if they get that $39 million and $6 million here and $7 million there, if it's impactful for our police force and damage in downtown and possible riots on Juneteenth? I can see moving through SeaTac into our town. I mean, what are the ramifications? How are we going to get reimbursed for this?
So, good question. I did go, the other webinar had Chief Diaz gave a presentation, talked about that FIFA does pay for things like security in the perimeter and base camps and training sites, and they will be asking for federal dollars to pay for special teams. They're working with Congress to see how they might be able to supplement security for cities, but haven't heard anything yet. Congress is supportive, but they don't have details. So we'll be working with PPP in order to secure support and funding. Some cities are working on their own to supplement. So that's all we know so far. So Chief John Diaz, Chief Security Officer for the World Cup, if I've got his contact information, if anybody ever wants to follow up on that. So, yeah, no good solid answers.
I'm concerned for the citizens and their safety and our downtown core and even up on the highway if it spills down further from SeaTac into our town.
And depending
we've got
on
the red line up
rivalries.
there. We've got the 4 Points up
Yeah.
there. We do have hotels that could possibly be impacted in an already impactful zone.
Well, and they do talk about, there has been talk about how the passionate fans and teams, depending on who ends up coming together in the city and what the dynamics are between the two nations or what their fans.
Anybody that wants to watch Green Street Hooligans, that's what soccer's all about, and that possibly could happen in our town. So.
Yeah, so that is a concern. Thank you.
I do believe Chief Bowe has been participating in like regional meetings already on public safety planning, and as we get more information, we can share that with you all.
Thank you.
Councilmember Mahoney.
I assume you already are going to do this, but I think the What's Up Des Moines group and Destination Des Moines are some that should get a presentation. They usually have outreach to the businesses and so forth because it'll be on them to figure it out. The only thing I see is that we may want to look at a budget amendment to Councilmember Nutting's point for 2026 for the celebration we do for 4th of July. We could possibly get a lot more people than we normally would have, which is a very big concern about policing and all the extra resources and so forth that we don't have. So I see that as problematic. But yeah, I think putting it in their hands, and if they could find ways to, one, inform the businesses of the impact, and two, then each business can choose how they want to self-promote. And maybe there's a combination. They seem to be able, particularly What's Up Des Moines has had great success in getting more businesses to a meeting to get some information out. Possibly they could generate some kind of information that can be distributed as well.
Thank you. Something I thought of would be just considering even maybe temporary business permits or pop-up permits for like a pop-up coffee shop or a designated place for food trucks in town. I mean, just short-term business opportunities to take advantage of lots of visitors in town. And I don't know what that would look like, but yes.
I agree with extra permits or I don't want to take away from the business opportunities for this already established brick and mortar businesses in the town. I would much rather help them out than help somebody from outside of the city that we're not going to generate revenue from and help them. I'm against that. I would prefer to help out our brick and mortars that are already here.
Yeah, I just going to add to that point. I think there's going to be a lot of competition, particularly for the food trucks. I don't think there's going to be a lot of availability, which we usually depend on. It would be a great opportunity if we maybe worked with the health department in some ways that maybe some of our businesses might be able to serve a lot of the community down at the event and just up the hill. So it might be an opportunity in that way where they can raise some additional money and not necessarily just in their brick and mortar or place of business. So there might be something we could do there to maybe, yeah, there, and then there's a lot of people are sampling the local cuisine, but it's also an additional location where they might have the opportunity to do business. Because I doubt we're going to get a food truck. I would ask Bonnie Wilkins, which her odds of it, since she's procured food cups, she's given me the 0 chance. Yeah, so I think it is an opportunity for them, but getting it messaging through business like What's Up Des Moines, or organizations like What's Up Des Moines and Destination Des Moines may be our best avenue for them to start talking about plans and maybe coordinating and seeing what they can do.
Yeah, or even what businesses might come up with themselves.
Preferential treatment for already established businesses in Des Moines.
And I do assume that our restrictive health codes sometimes can be business hindering outside of a local location. So if there's ways that we might be able to facilitate that or help in any regard. Obviously, we don't want them to serve tainted food, but we want to make it an easier process. But I think there's opportunity there because I think we could have an event, and if we didn't use it, we'd have no food, and that could be worse, especially if there's beer drinking and no food. Isn't that the perfect combination for those types of folks? And our own.
I mean, since we're all kind of spitballing here, it's just, we do the movies in the park all the time. So we're used to putting a big screen up there. And to have a watch party from particularly the fans that are based out at Renton to come on over here and have a nice day at the beach and do that. If we can figure out how to organize the businesses so that we can capitalize on that without overwhelming our police department, because that obviously will require quite a bit. I think that's a huge opportunity for people to come down and do that. And I don't know that it would be a bigger event than a Blues and Brews when the weather's nice. The last Blues and Brews, didn't suffered from a weather problem. But, it just seems to me that's a big opportunity for to get people to come to the city, spend some money. You know, if there was even just spinning this way out, let's say a team from India made it and was here in Seattle, and we can get Kanishka and the hotel up there involved to do some of that, to partner up with that. That would be a great opportunity for everybody involved. So, you know, I think that there are lots of opportunities that need to put a little flesh on the bones. But I hope we can do something like that, because I think it'd be a fun event, and I think it'd be good for the town.
Yeah, something. So it would be nice to do something.
So, and we hopefully won't invite the Green Street hooligans. Yeah. So.
Any thoughts, Jean, over there? All right. Well, good. And obviously, any thoughts moving down the line, bring forward ideas, either from the dais or to our city manager and brainstorm. So, great. Thanks for sitting through a relatively dry presentation. Appreciate that. Okay. Relatively, was that an understatement? All right, do I have I'll tell you what's coming up here. Yeah, well, just a second. So this is the end of our meeting. Next meeting date is February 6, 2025. It will be a city council study session again, 2 in a row. Please remember to pick up after yourself, because there's lots of little things now. And Councilmember Nutting.
Move to adjourn the, I can't see my watch, the 30th meeting.
Second by Deputy Mayor Steinmetz. All in favor, raise your right hand. 4-1. Looks like somebody didn't raise their hand. Abstain? Oh, there we go. 5-0, thanks.
You don't have to vote to adjourn the meeting.
I know.